DLC, downloadable content. While it can be an amazing tool to enrich your gameplay experience, fix bugs or glitches, or just add more to the story to an already fantastic game, DLC can also add unforeseen difficulty to a game you previously breezed through, turning the fantastic and enjoyable time you had with your beloved game into a much harder experience. And that is what we're going to take a look at today. Hey friends, and welcome to another video. Today we'll take a look at 5 DLC that make completing a game so much harder that they rightfully earned the title Nightmare DLC. Note that I didn't rank the DLC on this list based on difficulty or grind, but rather just wanted to show you 5 of the examples I've personally experienced in one way or another. If you have personally experienced the DLC which was tough as nails, I'd love to read about it in the comments. And since this is a very small channel, I'd be incredibly thankful for you to like and subscribe if you like the content. So, without further ado, let's start the suffering and jump right into the video. Devil May Cry 5, The Bloody Palace DLC. Devil May Cry 5, the 5th part of the series that impressed fans and critics alike, follows the story of Dante, Nero and V as they try to, once again, save the world from an incredible demonic threat. Not only is the base game one of the genuinely hardest games to complete due to the sheer amount of skill needed to beat the harder difficulties such as Dante Must Die or Hell, the game is quite challenging even on normal difficulty, especially if you're new to it. With Devil May Cry 5 asking nothing but raw skill of its player base, the Bloody Palace DLC is no exception. With over 100 stages, the Bloody Palace DLC throws wave after wave of enemies at you while also putting you on a timer, requiring you to not just be deadly, but also incredibly efficient in how you take your enemies out. And rather than just having to face the most annoying combination of the standard enemies you meet throughout the game, you will also have to take on bosses in this DLC. No matter how you do it, you must somehow beat the entire 101 levels in time, and obviously without dying. It is worth noting that you will look at a playtime of around 1 hour if you successfully beat the palace, and to truly complete and finish this DLC, you must do it with Dante, Nero, V, and optimally Virgil. Only then will you earn the achievement that came with this DLC called Path of the Conquerors, which will leave you with proof of your accomplishments and unlimited bragging rights. If you therefore truly enjoy the Devil May Cry series and don't mind bullying demons for hours on end, then the Bloody Palace DLC is just what you're looking for, adding an extra edge to an already extremely difficult and skill-demanding base game. XCOM 2, Alien Hunters DLC. XCOM 2 is a fantastic top-down turn-based strategy game that is extremely unforgiving and punishes you gravely even for the slightest mistakes. Not having been able to get past mission 3 without utterly failing on even normal difficulty, I can express my respect for those who beat the game on harder difficulties enough. Although the base game was beyond grindy and difficult already, hardcore XCOM fans did wish for something more challenging, and that is what they got with this DLC. In Alien Hunters you have to face an all-new group of enemies which differ a lot from what you fought before, most notably the Rulers. Extremely tanky and powerful enemies which will eat your team for breakfast if you don't position and place them perfectly. To not make things extremely one-sided though, the DLC gives you, the player, a new set of weapons to combat the terror it just summoned upon you. Whether you're an XCOM veteran or a complete newcomer, this DLC will make things much harder for you and give you many more hours to grind out, until you can finally say that you fully completed XCOM 2. And if you do somehow manage to finally finish all that Alien Hunters has to offer, do not worry, since there's 2 additional DLC waiting for you already. Uncharted 4 Survival DLC. Uncharted 4 is known for many things, such as having stunningly beautiful graphics, a fantastic story, and the currently last part that featured Nathan Drake. What is lesser known is that next to a PvP multiplayer mode, there's also a PvE mode where you and up to 3 more people take on hordes of enemies that attack you in waves. To say that this task is extremely grindy is an understatement, since you need to level up and upgrade your weapons through an XP system that rewards you for playing the missions. Other than the grindiness that allows you to unlock weapons, there's also the fact that the different levels the DLC offers have multiple difficulties, and to beat the hardest difficulty, you need to unironically become amazing at the game mode, which again means endless grinding, knowing where enemies spawn and leveling up your weapons to a level where they actually pack a punch, since an unleveled weapon won't even tickle the big bad guys in the hardest difficulty. There's always the option to do what I did, which involves you queuing up at 3 in the morning when every sane person is asleep, and to the lack of players you get matched up with 2 guys from Brazil who tell you what to do in Portuguese while you reply in broken Spanish. They then somehow make it possible to glitch out of the map and with their expertise take out every freaking enemy there is. Rinse and repeat for 3 hours and boom, easy. You beat the hardest level on the absolutely worst difficulty with 3 stars. Then you officially get the connected achievement, hide the game in its box and never speak about this to anyone again until years later you make a video about the hardest DLC you've been through and finally confess what's making you wake up at night showered in your own sweat. Back to the DLC though. It is extremely tedious and grinding, and realistically, unless you're not willing to spend hours upon hours grinding out this multiplayer mode or find an extremely good team of people who will carry you, you might want to sit this one out, even if it does mean leaving Uncharted 4 not fully completed. Resident Evil 7 Banned Footage Volume 1. While one part of the DLC adds some more story to the already fantastic Resident Evil 7, the DLC Banned Footage Volume 1 comes with 2 more modes. It was tough to choose which of the DLC I'd include here, especially since the DLC Zoe Must Die is also way up there with DLC that just makes it so much harder to complete a game. But I did eventually choose this one, since you first have to figure out how to escape from insane Marguerite Baker without her catching you, in what is basically the hardest puzzle in arguably the whole Resident Evil series. The real tough nut to crack here is the Ethan Must Die mode. It has you trying to take down a certain boss in a game while giving you only the utmost necessary things to somehow make it possible. Being sent straight to heaven with just 2 hits from the enemies, which there are plenty of, you must be insanely resourceful and smart about how you approach each different scenario you come across. From what I've seen, many people claim that just knowing the layout of the map and where you have to go next is half the challenge. So it might be smart to start by doing that. No matter how you try and beat this incredibly tough challenge, until you kill Marguerite Baker a second time in a much harder DLC, you can't truly claim to have completed all of Resident Evil 7, making this DLC a true nightmare in a fittingly spooky game. Uncharted Trilogy Remastered, the brutal difficulty. Okay, coming to the end of the list. I know we said that we're not sorting the DLC by difficulty, but let's be honest, this one is definitely the worst DLC, and I think anyone who has played it can agree with me. I'm not sure if Naughty Dog secretly hates their player base, because they're known for introducing extremely hard things to do in their DLCs, and they've already popped up twice in the top 5, but rather than being hard, this DLC is just plain unfair. And while I'm very aware that that sounds like your average crybaby complaining about any hard section in any game ever, it's actually true in the case of the remastered Uncharted trilogy. Let me explain. Every Uncharted game naturally has the hardest difficulty mode, the so-called crushing difficulty. And while unforgiving in the sense that just a few bullets or punches can kill you, it could be argued that the crushing difficulty is the best way to experience the Uncharted games, since encounters are thrilling and you are constantly on the edge of your seat trying to survive and somehow make it, being as efficient as possible with ammunition and strategy, since any mistake will come back to haunt you. Exactly because the crushing difficulty is so demanding, it is an incredible feeling to clean an entire camp full of enemies on the crushing difficulty, since you know that you just planned and executed your strategy flawlessly, as otherwise you would have never made it this far. Now, while that all sounds great, and I assure you it really is, for some reason, while remastering the Uncharted trilogy, the developers thought to themselves, why not take the perfect crushing difficulty, which has been carefully crafted and tested to be the perfect balance between difficult yet satisfying, and amp it up times 10. And that brings us to brutal difficulty. While crushing is a true test of your skill, brutal difficulty is more like a test to see how far developers can push their players until they lose their sanity or give up. A single bullet can kill you in this difficulty. And while that might sound hard but not impossible, consider that in Uncharted you are basically constantly surrounded by enemies from every possible angle, riding a vehicle somewhere while getting shot at, running from enemies while they shoot at you, or dangling off a wall while exposed to enemies from basically every side. I personally say that the games were purposefully designed in a way where Nathan can and should get shot, maybe even just to make the experience more immersive for the player, giving it more thrill and action. And while you barely make it through those situations in crushing difficulty even while playing perfectly, which is what makes that difficulty so satisfying to complete, brutal difficulty makes things feel tedious and just a chore, pointing out flaws that you didn't previously realize existed within the game. Like when an enemy just knows where you're hiding at and where you're gonna shoot from, or especially during the many action sequences that take place while riding a vehicle. There are entire compilations out there to display how cheap this game mode feels, because there's moments such as these. And to be all honest with you, I did complete this DLC difficulty in the first part, but won't even bother with the other two, since it apparently only gets worse. So much so that people in forums claim they take hours to get from one checkpoint to the other. However you put it, this difficulty is not a challenge but rather a slap in the face to everyone trying to complete the remastered Uncharted trilogy, and if you value your time and your gameplay experience, then just don't bother, and instead enjoy fat donut Drake speedruns like the rest of us. So friends, these were my personal 5 Nightmare DLC. What is your opinion? Do you agree with my list? What are some hardcore DLC that you've been through and I should know about? Please let me know in the comments and leave a like and a subscription. If you're interested in achievement or trophy hunting in general, please check out my videos about the Resident Evil, Bioshock and Assassin's Creed series. Thank you so much for your time. Remember that my channel revolves all around gaming and there's gonna be much more stuff to come, and thank you so much for watching the video.